Hi, everybody. This Hangout is a public service of Holy Family Learning Center. We're located in West Seneca, New York, and you can find us at holyfamilylearningcenter.org. And if you have any questions about anything you hear in today's Hangout or about homeschooling in general, feel free to reach out to us at holyfamilylearningcenter@gmail.com. So today's Hangout is going to be about the decision to homeschool at all. So my name is Nella Smolinski. I'm the co-director of Holy Family Learning Center, and I'm joined today by Liz Pollak, our director at Holy Family Learning Center. We're going to talk a little bit about how did we make this crazy decision to homeschool, and a little bit about our backgrounds, and maybe even a little bit, about what it's been like since we started. So I am actually going to turn things over to Liz. She's going to give us a little bit of her background. And so Liz, what made you decide to start homeschooling?
All right, like Nella said, my name is Liz Pollak, and I come from Western New York, and I've been married to my husband now for 9 years, and I have my degrees are in education. So I went to school and have my bachelor's in early childhood and childhood education, and then I have a master's in special ed and math education up through 12th grade. And so I knew from the get-go that I wanted to be a teacher. And so for a while I subbed in West Seneca, and then I got a position at 14 Holy Helpers and was a teacher there for 4 years, and my girls started going there. And life was good. And it was at that time when I finally got a teaching position that I'd been waiting for my whole life, that my husband started coming to me and said, what about homeschooling? And it threw me for a loop. And in my mind, I was like, what are you talking about? We just racked up $30,000 worth of school loans. My students need me. Homeschooling was not on my radar at all, but God had different plans, and I started hanging out with some great moms who were homeschooling and getting to hear what education was like, not having to follow what a district provides or what New York State standards provide, but kind of being able to have fun and teach and move at your own child's pace. That kind of got me thinking. And so when we had our last child 2 years ago, I took maternity leave and then decided not to go back. And so we started homeschooling last year, which was great. We worked out how we wanted to do it. I was teaching everything. My mom would come in and teach art classes. We would go out into the community and do dance workshops. We would meet with other homeschooling groups and do fun activities. And then this year it's changed again. And I think that's kind of what I'm learning. Homeschool is going to be different every year. It's going to adapt to our children's needs. It's going to adapt to my busyness and their busyness. And we'll kind of do it how it works, or make do with how it works. And so now this year we're doing homeschooling at home 3 days a week, and we're also doing our learning center 2 days a week. And it's a good mix for our girls. My girls love being able to see with their friends, be able to hang out with their friends and learn in a environment with new teachers, but they love being home and working at our pace and going to the library and learning more on a topic that they really like. So Nella, you were actually one of the people that introduced me to homeschooling with a huge number of children and all that. So how did you actually get started?
Well, we live in Amherst, New York right now. My background is also in education. I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Buffalo in linguistics. My focus for that degree was child language acquisition. And I have a master's degree in elementary education also from the University of Buffalo. And my husband, who's also a UB grad, when he finished his PhD, we moved to Florida, and he was doing a postdoctoral fellowship there. And during that time, our oldest turned 4. And so everyone was having the pre-K discussion. Where are you going to go to pre-K? What are you going to do? And from the time I had him, he had sort of this niggling feeling about homeschooling. And it first started popping into my head even before I had my son, when I was in grad school for education. And on the one hand, we were always told parent involvement is the #1 factor in student success. But then you would be having conversations in class about strategies to do different things and improve performance in different areas. And very often, whenever the suggestions started to go into the direction of maybe the families could do da-da-da, maybe we can involve the parents in this way, when you got very far, when you really actually didn't get very far beyond just the basic things we already know about, like maybe parents come in to read to the kids or things that we've all known, the professors would say, well, that would be great, but, parents can't do da-da-da-da, or, it would always get shut down. And I remember just being confused, and, obviously every family has a different situation, and there truly are parents, for whatever reasons, don't have the resources of time or whatever it is to be very involved. But it always went even further than that. The parents were always sort of set aside in a way that was just perplexing to me. And it just was a thing that was always at the back of my mind. So fast forward to, we are in Florida, our son is 4, and we have to start figuring out an answer to the question, what are you going to do for school? And the area that we were in Florida didn't have great schools. And pretty much everybody we knew scrimped and saved to send their kids to the one local Catholic school, which was exorbitantly expensive. I've been spoiled by growing up in the Western New York area, where we have really affordable Catholic schools, and there's one in pretty much every community. In many communities, you have your pick. We had the choice of one that was 35 minutes away, that was very expensive, and it just still wasn't sitting right. So I started to research homeschooling. And the thing that really drew us in the beginning, more so than the academics or anything else, was actually the logistics. And I forgot about this till I was asking my husband when we were planning to do this hangout. And I said, do you remember back when we made that decision? Because my oldest is 11 now. So we're going on 7 or 8 years of homeschooling. In the early years, it's a lot more fun than what people recognize at school. So it's, I don't even think of those early years as schooling, even though that's what we were doing. So back then, what really hit us was the logistics, because my husband has a very demanding job. He's a chemist, and we loved the idea that when we got home at night, when he came home at night, we could have real family time. It wouldn't be all of the daddy time was spent in homework. It really appealed to us, the idea that if dad traveled for work, maybe we could go with him and not have to worry about pulling the kids out of school. And the other thing that really was a big part of our decision was that at that time, we were anticipating that my husband would travel a lot and possibly have to move around a lot for his career. And the thought of, repeatedly uprooting our children and making them start again in a new school seemed, like not the most ideal. And we thought, well, homeschooling is a way that we could give a little more consistency if that was a reality in our lives. So we started looking closer, and we learned about the idea that you're going to be going at your child's pace. Like Liz said, you're not beholden to some sort of monolithic standard that's made for this sort of mythical middle-of-the-road child. You can do exactly what your kid needs. If they need to go ahead, you can do that. If they need more time, you can do that. And they're not getting this feedback from this group of peers around them that they're ahead or behind. They just know that they're learning. And so that was a lot of the stuff that was the impetus for us to actually give this a try and actually feel the bravery to say, we're going to homeschool. And then the final thing that really tipped the scales was one day I read an article, and I wish I knew where it was, because I always tell people, I'm saying, this woman deserves a gold medal. She said, homeschooling is a year-by-year, kid-by-kid decision. And that was so freeing, because the scariest thing about homeschool was the idea that, like, I'm committing to educate this child for life till grade 12, till grade 8, or whatever it is. And it seemed like too big of a decision to decide the next, 18 years of my child's life in one decision. And that was so freeing. And that's what we've done. We have done it on a year-by-year, kid-by-kid basis. We've had some kids who have gone to a traditional school. Last year, 2 of my girls went to a traditional school. And we're back to homeschooling again and having them twice a week at the Learning Center. And so that's a ton of the stuff. It's a big decision. There's so many reasons to homeschool, but that's a summary kind of, how we ended up here. And, the most interesting thing since we've started has been this idea. You go in thinking, well, if my kid needs to move faster, then he can and he won't be held back. And I think maybe a lot of us have this idea that, of course, my kid's going to be the one who's going quicker. And I was confronted within a year or 2 that my son was not learning to read, on maybe what the prescribed schedule would be. And we were able to give him the time we needed, and we were actually able to identify that he was dyslexic, and we would not have been able to do that with the clarity that we did and the amount of time that we did had I not been sitting with him every day and seeing what he was doing, sentence to sentence, word to word. So we've already, reaped the rewards of having the ability to be truly individualized. So what about you, Liz? What has there been, especially coming from, a full-on traditional school lifestyle as a teacher and a parent? What's been surprising to you, or maybe not as you would have expected back before homeschooling was even on your radar?
One of the biggest thing is the amount of time. Going from teaching, you're in school all day long, you're lesson planning, you're doing all this work, your kids are in school. By the time you come home, Isabel, my oldest, was just in kindergarten and 1st grade, and she had homework. And then by the time you get homework done, by the time you do dinner and stuff, it was, like you said somewhat too, all the time to hang out with mommy and daddy by the end of the night. You're just accomplishing all these homework-related tasks. You're not living and having fun. And these years go by so quickly. And so with homeschooling, it's been nice because we can have days that are very long because we're really excited about what we're learning, or we're out in the community and exploring and going to the zoo and learning about these animals in depth, or going on other field trips and learning about things. Or we can have days that are really short. It doesn't have to be this prescribed 8-hour day. You grew up, I went to a traditional school, grew up, everything was 6 to 8 hours. And then same as a teacher, where we can work as long as we need to, we can work as short as we need to, we can combine things into days and have longer weekends. It's the flexibility is something that I never thought of that has been a blessing to our family, just with everything that we have to do.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And we've noticed that as well. And I think people really are, you really touched on something, because people really are surprised. I think when they think of homeschooling, they think of having a miniature classroom in their house, and that you're going to have to use those full 6 to 8 hours a day to just be doing school. And they also don't think about the, all of the wasted time in a school day. It's totally necessary, but the time for kids to all get up and go line up to go to the bathroom and come back, the time, even for things like lunch, by the time the kids get their lunches, line up, walk down, not even counting the eating, and then lining up, cleaning up, lining up, coming back. Same thing for the specials, the time it takes for just to make sure everyone's on the same page in the book and has their pencil. And, there's just so much wasted time when you're managing a huge group that's built into the day, that when that all melts away, you're really left with a much shorter instructional day. And, that is a blessing, because it really leaves time also for the kids to explore individual interests. And there's, you don't have essentially the clock ticking telling you it's time to move on. Like you said, if they're really into something, you can start looking up, different things and going down little rabbit trails and really going where their interest leads on a topic, because you don't have this checklist of things that must be done that day, that quarter, that, you know, year. You can really follow things in depth, and you're not wasting on time on all those other little things, you know. And even with assessment, you know, assessment testing is a hot topic right now. You don't need to give a chapter test at the end of a chapter. You can assess all kinds of ways, but you generally, because you're sitting with that student day in and day out, you're seeing what they're doing. The kid who's ready to move on doesn't need to keep doing the lessons and then take a whole chapter test on something they already know, and you see that they know it. And the kid who's not ready for a quote unquote chapter test, they're not biting their fingernails the night before a test that they're not ready for because they just needed a little more time, or they just needed it explained another way. They needed the practice. And so you're right, it's the time issue is incredible. Just like you said, the flexibility and the fact that it's not an 8-hour day of just school, and it's not an 8-hour day and then come home and do another 2 to 3 hours or whatever it is of, you know, papers and tests and studying. It's not more school on top of school. You know, it's pretty efficient, and it is definitely a blessing. So is there anything you'd like to add before we sign off?
No, if you have any questions, like Nella said in the beginning, please feel free to contact us. You can go to the website, or you can reach us through our email, which is the same beginning of our website, Holy Family Learning Center, and then it's at gmail.com.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. You know, please reach out with questions, because the biggest thing about homeschooling is that you are not alone. There are a lot of us out there, and we are ready to help if you're looking to take the plunge. So we're signing off. Thank you for joining us.